Before July 4th, 1776, before a nation was born, there was a long road, years of organizing, protesting, and finally rebelling, not just against a king, but against centuries of colonial dominance. This wasn't destiny. It was a choice made by ordinary people in extraordinary times. The spark didn't ignite overnight. It began in taverns, town halls, and wooden kitchens, where farmers, printers, shopkeepers, and sailors debated Britain's growing control over colonial life. They knew one colony alone couldn't stand against the empire, but together, they had a chance. In 1772, Boston formed the first Committee of Correspondence. They weren't soldiers, they were communicators. They passed letters by horseback from colony to colony, sharing news, rallying support, and coordinating action. It was the first real nervous system of the Revolution. But the roots went back even further. In 1765, Britain passed the Stamp Act, taxing newspapers, contracts, and even playing cards. Colonial leaders gathered for the Stamp Act Congress, the first time multiple colonies spoke with one voice. No taxation without representation. They weren't demanding war, yet they were asking to be heard. When Parliament ignored them, resistance moved to the marketplace. Merchants and everyday people joined boycotts, refusing British goods. Women, the daughters of liberty, spun their own cloth, brewed their own tea, and reminded Britain that economic rebellion could be just as powerful as armed resistance. But some protests made noise that could be heard across the Atlantic. On December 16, 1773, men disguised as Mohawk Indians boarded ships in Boston Harbor and dumped 342 chests, nearly 92,000 pounds, of tea into the water. The Boston Tea Party had spoken. In London, Parliament seethed. Britain answered with the Intolerable Acts, closing Boston's port, dissolving Massachusetts' government, and putting soldiers in control of the streets. But instead of weakening the colonies, it pushed them closer together. In 1774, representatives from 12 colonies met in Philadelphia for the First Continental Congress. They agreed to a united boycott, drafted a petition to the king, and urged militias to prepare. They were no longer resisting laws, they were preparing for a fight. April 19, 1775, British troops marched to seize weapons in Concord. On Lexington Green, colonial militias blocked their path. A shot rang out. No one knows who fired first, but it became known as the shot heard round the world. The war had begun. Still, independence wasn't guaranteed. That changed in January 1776, when Thomas Paine's common sense swept through the colonies. In plain, powerful words, Paine urged, "The cause of America is in a great measure the cause of all mankind." On July 2, 1776, the Continental Congress voted for independence. 2 days later, they signed the Declaration of Independence. It was a statement to the world, freedom not just from a king, but from the weight of empire. The revolution brought liberty for some, tragedy for others. Indigenous nations, enslaved people, loyalists, their lives were forever changed. Through words and weapons, petitions and protests, 13 scattered colonies became one rebellion and paved the road to 1776.